Friends, it's very easy to look calm when everything is going our way. But the real test of our character begins when someone hurts us with their words, their actions, or sometimes their silence. Have you ever felt that sting in your heart when someone says something unfair? When someone misunderstands you completely, and all you want to do is defend yourself instantly? But let me tell you something powerful. Your reaction can become your greatest downfall or your greatest progress. The moment someone hurts you, life is not testing your emotions, it's testing your evolution. You see, reacting instantly might make you feel powerful for a moment, but it often makes you weak in the long run. When you reply with anger, you become like the person who hurt you. But when you respond with awareness, you rise above them. So today, I want to share with you not how to escape pain, because pain is a part of growth, but how to progress through it. Because spiritual maturity is not about how quickly you react, but how peacefully you respond. The pause between what happens to you and how you respond to it is where your greatest power lies. In that brief moment, before you say something, before you act, before you allow the emotion to lead you, that's where you decide the quality of your peace, your maturity, and your progress. Most people lose that moment. They react instantly because the ego feels attacked, the heart feels misunderstood, the mind feels the need to prove something. And in that heat of emotion, words escape that can never be taken back. That's why learning to pause is not weakness. It is the mark of inner mastery. It's like standing at the edge of a storm and choosing not to be swept away. Imagine this: you're driving to work, already running late, and someone suddenly cuts you off in traffic. Your instant reaction might be anger, frustration, or shouting inside your car. But pause for a moment. Does that reaction change what happened? Does it make your day better? No. It only adds chaos to the already existing noise. Now, imagine you took a breath, smiled slightly, and told yourself, maybe they're in a hurry for a reason I don't know. The situation remains the same, but you are no longer enslaved by it. That's the power of a pause. It doesn't change what happened, but it changes you within it. Life constantly gives us moments like that. Moments that test our ability to stay centered when everything outside us tries to pull us apart. Sometimes the hurt comes not from strangers, but from people close to us. A friend might betray your trust. A loved one might say something that pierces your heart. In those moments, the easiest thing is to react instantly, to defend yourself, to argue, to match their tone. But every time you do that, you surrender your peace to someone else's mood. You give them remote control of your emotions. The pause takes that control back. It's a silent boundary that says, I will not let your actions dictate my state. When you pause, you are not suppressing your emotions. You are observing them. You're allowing the storm to pass without letting it destroy the house within. It's like seeing waves crash against the shore, but knowing the ocean will always find stillness again. That's what maturity looks like. Being able to feel deeply without reacting destructively. Sometimes people think silence means weakness. But silence, when chosen consciously, is strength disguised as calm. It's the strength that allows you to respond wisely instead of reacting wildly. I once met a man who had been deeply insulted by his boss in front of his colleagues. He told me how every cell in his body wanted to argue back, to shout, to prove his worth. But instead, he paused, he listened, took a deep breath, and said, I'll get back to you after I reflect on this. Later, when emotions settled, he calmly shared his side and his boss eventually apologized for being harsh. He didn't lose his job. He didn't lose his respect. He didn't lose his peace. That's the beauty of a pause. It saves relationships, it saves reputations, and most importantly, it saves your inner harmony. When we pause, we shift from reacting emotionally to responding consciously. The world doesn't need more people who react, it needs more people who reflect. Reaction is instinctive, reflection is intelligent, and progress always happens when intelligence leads emotion, not the other way around. Think of a sculptor. Before striking the hammer on the stone, he pauses, observes, and then strikes with precision. That pause is what turns a rough stone into a beautiful statue. Similarly, every time you pause before reacting, you are sculpting your own character into something refined and graceful. Sometimes that pause may last a few seconds. Sometimes it might take days. You might need to step away from a heated situation, take a walk, or sit in silence before replying to that message that hurt you. That space gives your mind clarity and your heart compassion. It helps you see things as they are, not as your emotions distort them to be. Over time, that habit builds your emotional muscle. You stop being easily triggered, and your calmness starts unsettling those who once could control you with chaos. Every spiritual tradition in the world, in its own way, teaches the power of the pause. Meditation, prayer, mindfulness, they are all tools to strengthen that space between impulse and action. When you practice stillness daily, it becomes easier to pause naturally during conflicts. You don't have to force calmness, it becomes who you are. In a world where everyone rushes to reply, react, and prove themselves right, the one who pauses stands out as rare. It's not about winning arguments anymore, it's about winning peace. And peace always comes to those who choose presence over reaction. So, the next time someone hurts you or something doesn't go your way, remember this: you are not obligated to react instantly. Take a breath, observe your emotions. Let the first wave of anger pass. Because what you say or do in that first moment of heat can define not only that relationship, but also your own spiritual progress. Growth doesn't come from reacting perfectly, it comes from pausing wisely. That small moment of silence has the power to rewrite your destiny. The world may never know what you wanted to say in anger, but you will always feel the quiet victory of peace that comes from restraint. And that, my friends, is real progress. When your peace becomes more important than your pride, and your silence speaks louder than any reaction ever could. Most of the time, when people hurt us, our minds rush to ask one question: why would they do that to me? We feel betrayed, misunderstood, or undervalued, and we want to react immediately. But the truth is, when someone hurts you, their action often says more about their inner world than it does about yours. Most people act out of their own pain, their own insecurities, or their own unresolved struggles. It's not always personal. It feels personal, but it's not. When we learn to see that, we stop reacting with anger and start responding with understanding. Imagine someone shouting at you in frustration. In that moment, you might feel your own anger rising. But what if you knew that person was going through a tough time at home, that they hadn't slept well in days, or that they were carrying burdens you couldn't see? Would your reaction change? Most likely, yes. Because understanding softens the edges of our emotions. It helps us see beyond the surface of someone's behavior and look into the story behind it. Every person who hurts another person is fighting a silent battle within. Hurt people hurt others. When you truly understand that, compassion starts to replace judgment, And that's when you begin to progress inwardly. Let's think about it in simple terms. When a child cries, you don't get angry at the child for crying. You try to understand what's wrong. Maybe the child is hungry, maybe tired, maybe scared. You show empathy because you know the cry is a signal of discomfort, not an attack on you. But as adults, we forget that grown-ups cry too, just not always with tears. Sometimes their anger, arrogance, sarcasm, or rudeness is a disguised cry for help. They are expressing pain, but in a distorted way. And if you respond to that pain with more pain, the cycle never ends. But if you understand it, you break the chain. There's a story about a monk who was once slapped by a man in public for no apparent reason. Everyone expected the monk to react, to defend himself, to respond with anger. But the monk simply looked into the man's eyes and said, "I see that you must be suffering deeply to act like this. I wish you peace." That one sentence disarmed the man completely. He began to cry and apologized. The monk didn't react, he understood. Understanding doesn't mean you justify wrong actions, but it means you rise above the level of pain where those actions come from. You don't allow someone else's wounds to open yours. When we respond with understanding, we reclaim our emotional power. You see, when you react instantly, you become part of someone else's emotional storm. But when you pause and seek to understand, you become the calm center of that storm. You realize that their anger is not truly about you, it's about them. Their judgment comes from their perception, not from your truth. Understanding this gives you freedom. Freedom from taking things too personally, freedom from unnecessary conflict, freedom from inner chaos. In daily life, we meet people who might gossip about us, criticize us unfairly, or even betray our trust. Our instinct is to defend ourselves, to prove them wrong, to explain our side. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not react, but silently understand that they are speaking from their level of awareness, not yours. Everyone sees the world through the lens of their own experiences. Some people's lenses are clean, others are clouded by pain, jealousy, or fear. Don't lower your vibration to match theirs. Understanding keeps you above the noise. I remember once meeting a woman who told me about how her colleague constantly undermined her at work. Every time she achieved something, the colleague would make a sarcastic remark. For months, she felt angry and frustrated. Then one day, she discovered that the colleague was struggling with self-doubt and felt threatened by her confidence. From that day onward, she stopped reacting to the remarks. She began treating the colleague with kindness, acknowledging her contributions, and over time, the tension dissolved. That's the magic of understanding. It changes the atmosphere without a fight. Understanding others also means you begin to protect your own energy. You don't absorb their negativity. You don't mirror their anger. You simply see them for who they are. Human beings trying to deal with their own imperfections. And when you look at people that way, forgiveness becomes easier. You realize we all make mistakes when we're in pain. We all say things we don't mean. Understanding makes forgiveness not just possible, but natural. This is what spiritual growth truly looks like. Not reacting to everything that hurts you, but using understanding as your shield. When you understand someone, your heart expands. You don't see enemies, you see wounded souls. You don't see insults, you see cries for help. And this shift changes everything. You no longer waste energy in emotional battles. You start to feel light because your peace no longer depends on other people's behavior. Understanding doesn't mean you have to tolerate toxic behavior or allow yourself to be disrespected. It simply means you respond from wisdom, not from wounds. You can calmly walk away, you can set boundaries, you can express your truth, but all from a place of peace, not pain. That's the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is emotional, responding is spiritual. So the next time someone hurts you, take a deep breath and remind yourself, they are showing me their pain. Try to see the world through their eyes, even if you don't agree with their actions. Because once you start understanding people, instead of reacting to them, you'll discover a new kind of strength. The strength that comes not from fighting, but from feeling. The strength that doesn't destroy, but heals. And when you start responding to pain with understanding, instead of anger, you realize you're not just surviving life anymore. You're evolving through it. You can't control how others treat you, but you can always control how you respond and what you become through it. That's one of life's deepest truths. The world will never stop testing you. Some people will misunderstand you, some will mock you, and some will disappoint you when you least expect it. But your reaction to them determines whether you rise above or fall below. Their actions are their karma, your reaction is yours. What defines your character is not what happens to you, but how you handle it. The way you respond in pain reveals more about your strength than any success ever could. Think about fire. The same fire that melts butter hardens steel. The difference isn't in the fire, it's in what it touches. Similarly, life's challenges are the same for everyone, but how we respond defines whether we melt or become stronger. Every difficult situation, every unkind word, every injustice is a fire sent to reveal what we're made of. Will we react with bitterness and resentment, or will we stand firm in dignity and grace? That choice shapes our destiny. I once met a young man who told me a story that beautifully showed this truth. He was unfairly accused of something at work that he didn't do. His colleagues began to gossip, and even his friends started doubting him. He felt angry, helpless, and humiliated. He wanted to shout, to prove his innocence instantly. But he remembered a simple lesson. Don't let someone else's actions destroy your peace. Instead of reacting, he stayed calm, continued to work sincerely, and let time reveal the truth. Weeks later, the real story came out, and his reputation was restored. Not only that, but his calmness during the storm earned him even more respect than before. His reaction defined him, not their action. That's what inner strength looks like. When you stop reacting emotionally to other people's behavior, you take back your power. When you don't get dragged into every argument, when you stop defending yourself to those who misunderstand you, when you choose peace over proving your point, you are no longer controlled by circumstances. You become the master of your energy. Most people think strength is in shouting louder, explaining more, or reacting faster. But real strength is in staying still when chaos surrounds you. It's in saying, I refuse to let this situation disturb my peace. Every moment of your life gives you a choice: react or respond. Reaction is instinctive. It's what the ego does when it feels attacked. Response is intelligent. It's what the soul does when it's aligned with wisdom. Reactions are like sparks. They may feel powerful for a second, but they can burn everything around you. Responses are like calm water. They may look quiet, but they have depth and clarity. When you learn to respond instead of react, you shift from being driven by emotion to being guided by awareness. Look at nature. When the wind blows harshly, the strong trees don't shout back at the wind. They simply bend, adapt, and stay rooted. That's wisdom. You don't have to fight every storm. Sometimes the best reaction is quiet endurance. In silence, you protect your energy. You conserve your strength for growth, not for arguments. Because not everyone deserves a reaction from you. Some people feed off your energy. They provoke you to see if they can control your emotions. The moment you react, they win. But the moment you stay calm, you win. Your reaction can either build your peace or break it. Every time you react with anger, you hand your peace over to someone else. You give them power to decide how you feel. But when you respond with calmness, you keep your peace protected. This doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It means you channel them through wisdom. You acknowledge the hurt, but don't let it rule your behavior. It's okay to feel pain, but it's not okay to let that pain define your next move. There's a story of two monks walking through a forest. They came across a woman who needed help crossing a muddy river. One monk carried her across, and then they continued their journey. Hours later, the other monk asked, "Why did you carry that woman? We're not supposed to touch women." The first monk smiled and said, "Brother, I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" That's the power of the right reaction. The first monk acted with wisdom, while the second kept reacting long after the situation had ended. Many of us do the same. We carry emotional weight from moments long gone, replaying them again and again in our minds. But when we learn to respond with understanding and then let go, we stop carrying unnecessary pain. Your reaction is your reflection. It shows how evolved your mind and heart are. If someone insults you and you insult them back, you've mirrored their level. But if you stay kind, you've shown who you truly are. When you can stay gentle in a harsh world, you're not weak. You're powerful beyond measure. Because it takes nothing to react, but it takes great inner strength to stay calm, compassionate, and clear-headed. So, the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause and remind yourself, their action doesn't define me, my reaction does. You can't control the storms of life, but you can control how steady your sail is. People may hurt you, misunderstand you, or try to bring you down, but your reaction decides whether they succeed or not. Let your calmness be your defense, your silence be your wisdom, and your peace be your victory. Because when you no longer allow external chaos to disturb your internal clarity, you become truly free. That's when life stops being a series of reactions and becomes a journey of conscious response. And that's where true progress begins. Every time you're hurt, life quietly places two roads before you. One leads to retaliation, and the other to reflection. One is fiery fast and fueled by ego, the other is calm, deep, and guided by wisdom. Both roads promise relief, but only one brings peace. Retaliation gives you the illusion of power for a few seconds, but reflection gives you strength for a lifetime. When you choose reflection over retaliation, you're not letting someone win over you. You're choosing not to lose yourself over them. In the moment of hurt, reacting feels natural. Your mind rushes to defend your pride. You want to say something sharp, something that will make them feel what you felt. But that first impulse is never your best response. It's just your pain trying to speak too soon. Reflection, on the other hand, asks you to wait, breathe, and look inward. It whispers, "What is this moment trying to teach me?" That single question can transform an entire experience from bitterness to growth. Think about the difference between a mirror and a window. When you retaliate, you look through a window, you only see the person who hurt you. But when you reflect, you look into a mirror, You see yourself, your triggers, your emotions, and your inner landscape. That's where real healing begins. It's not always easy to pause and reflect when someone has wounded your heart, but those who master it become unshakably strong. Imagine a situation where someone at work unfairly criticizes your effort. You worked hard, gave your best, and instead of appreciation, you receive blame. Your instant reaction might be to argue or send a defensive message. But reflection says, pause. Maybe this is an opportunity to learn patience, or maybe it's showing me how attached I am to others' validation. You step back and breathe. Later, when emotions settle, you can address the situation with clarity instead of anger. That moment of reflection not only saves your peace, but also protects your dignity. Retaliation is like throwing a stone in muddy water. It only makes everything more unclear. Reflection, on the other hand, is like waiting for the water to settle so you can see the truth beneath. When you reflect, you allow wisdom to rise above emotion. You begin to understand that hurt people often act from their own brokenness. And if you mirror their behavior, you become just like them. But if you pause to reflect, you rise above the level of pain and operate from the level of peace. There's a beautiful story about a teacher and his student. One day, the student came running to his teacher, furious and shouting, "Someone insulted me badly. I can't tolerate it anymore. I'll make sure he regrets his words." The teacher smiled and said, "Before you react, take this glass of water, mix in a spoon of salt, and drink it." The student did and immediately spat it out. "It's so salty," he complained. The teacher then said, "No, take the same spoon of salt and put it into this lake." After doing so, the teacher asked, "Can you taste the salt now?" The student replied, "No, it's gone." The teacher said, "When you reflect, your mind becomes like the lake, vast and calm. Insults, like the salt, lose their bitterness in your stillness. But when you react instantly, your mind becomes like the small glass. Everything feels too intense, too personal." That's what reflection does. It expands your awareness so much that the little things no longer shake you. When you choose retaliation, you stay trapped in smallness, reacting to every slight, every comment, every opinion. But when you choose reflection, you grow so vast inside that small things simply dissolve in your peace. Reflection makes you mature. It teaches you not to waste energy fighting every battle. Not every insult deserves your response, and not every criticism deserves your attention. In real life, people who progress spiritually are not the ones who never face pain. They are the ones who pause long enough to reflect before acting on it. They ask themselves, what part of me is getting hurt right now? Is it my ego, my expectations, or my genuine values? That awareness changes everything. You begin to understand that not all pain is punishment. Some pain is purification. It's life's way of refining your patience, polishing your humility, and deepening your empathy. Reflection turns pain into wisdom. It gives you eyes that see beyond the moment. When someone betrays you, reflection helps you realize that maybe you were too trusting too quickly. When someone disrespects you, reflection teaches you the importance of setting boundaries with grace. Every reflection adds a new layer of understanding, while every retaliation adds a new layer of regret. The more you reflect, the more peaceful you become, because reflection transforms every wound into a teacher. One of the simplest ways to reflect in moments of pain is to ask yourself, what would my higher self do right now? That one thought can save you from so much regret. Your higher self doesn't shout, doesn't prove, doesn't react. It observes, learns, and lets go. It knows that your peace is far more valuable than your pride. Every time you choose reflection, you train your mind to respond from wisdom instead of wounds. So, when someone hurts you next time, don't rush to fight back. Sit quietly with the pain. Let it pass through you without resistance. Observe your feelings as if you're watching waves rise and fall on the ocean's surface. Because when the waves settle, the ocean becomes calm again, and in that calmness, you'll always find clarity. Retaliation will give you satisfaction for a minute, but reflection will give you strength for a lifetime. And true progress lies not in reacting faster, but in understanding deeper. That's when you realize peace is not found in winning arguments, peace is found in mastering your own reactions. Every pain we experience in life comes wrapped with a lesson from the divine. It rarely arrives gently. It often comes disguised as loss, betrayal, misunderstanding, or failure. And while most of us rush to escape it, avoid it, or suppress it, those who truly grow in life are the ones who sit with their pain and ask, "What are you trying to teach me?" Because every hurt carries a message, every heartbreak carries a direction, and every disappointment carries wisdom waiting to be uncovered. Pain is not here to destroy you, it is here to shape you. When something hurts you deeply, the mind's first instinct is to ask, "Why me?" But reflection transforms that question into, "What for?" Because pain always has a purpose. Maybe it came to make you stronger, or softer, or wiser. Maybe it came to pull you away from something that wasn't meant for you. The problem is not that pain visits our lives. The problem is that we resist it so much that we miss the wisdom it brings. If we can stop running from it and start listening to it, pain becomes one of our greatest teachers. Think about how gold is purified. It's placed in fire until all the impurities melt away. The gold doesn't complain about the heat, it allows the fire to do its work. Because it knows that on the other side of burning, it will shine brighter. Similarly, when life puts us through difficult times, it's not punishment, it's purification. Pain removes our arrogance, our attachments, our illusions, and makes us humble and compassionate. It teaches us patience when we want control, faith when we face uncertainty, and surrender when we can change outcomes. Imagine losing a friend you trusted deeply. The betrayal cuts like a knife. At first, all you can feel is anger and disappointment. But if you sit with that pain quietly, without letting it consume you, you might begin to see that this experience taught you something precious. Maybe it taught you to value yourself more, to trust your intuition, or to build boundaries. The pain feels unbearable in the moment, but when you look back later, you realize it made you wiser, calmer, and stronger. That's how pain works. It doesn't teach through comfort, it teaches through contrast. Pain also brings you closer to your inner self. When everything is going well, we rarely introspect. We live outwardly, chasing achievements, attention, and approval. But when life hurts us, we turn inward. We begin to question, reflect, and understand ourselves on a deeper level. Pain pushes you into silence where your soul finally gets a chance to speak. That's why, in moments of suffering, people often discover faith, purpose, and depth they never knew existed before. Pain awakens what comfort keeps asleep. There's a story of a man who kept asking the divine, "Why do you allow so much pain in my life?" One night, he had a dream. He saw himself in a workshop where the divine was shaping stones into beautiful sculptures. Every time the chisel hit, the stone cried in pain. But slowly, a masterpiece began to appear. The divine turned to the man and said, "If I stopped at the first strike, you would remain just a stone. It's the carving that creates your beauty. That dream made him realize that pain was never a punishment. It was part of his transformation. In everyday life, pain might appear as a failed relationship, a lost opportunity, or a harsh criticism. But beneath each lies a seed of awakening. A failed relationship might teach you the importance of self-love. A lost opportunity might redirect you toward a better path. A criticism might strengthen your humility. Nothing in life is wasted when you approach it with awareness. Pain becomes meaningful when you learn from it. It becomes meaningless only when you resist it. So the next time you feel hurt, don't rush to numb it. Sit with it. Feel it fully. Let it speak to you. Ask, what are you showing me that I couldn't see before? Sometimes pain reveals our attachments, the things we depended on too much. Sometimes it reveals our fears, the things we were too afraid to face. And sometimes it reveals our resilience, the strength we never knew we had. The divine doesn't send pain to break you, it sends pain to show you what needs healing. In the quiet after the storm, pain often leaves behind gifts, clarity, compassion, courage. When you've been through deep suffering, you understand others better. You stop judging quickly. You listen more. You forgive faster. You begin to see that everyone is carrying their own invisible battles. That's how pain turns you from being hard to being human. It melts the walls around your heart so you can love more authentically. We must stop seeing pain as the enemy. It's a messenger. It's that gentle, persistent nudge from the universe that says, you are meant to grow here. You may not see it while you're in the middle of it, but later, you'll look back and realize that your most painful chapters were the ones that built your strength, patience, and faith. Progress is not about avoiding pain, it's about transforming it into power. Remember, the lotus blooms from the mud, not from marble. The diamond is formed under pressure, not in comfort. The butterfly emerges from struggle, not stillness. Pain is the soil where transformation grows. So when life hurts, don't curse the process. Trust it. Let pain polish your soul until you shine with understanding. Because the moment you learn from your suffering, you stop suffering, and that's when you truly progress. Every dream demands discomfort before it becomes reality. Every strong soul has walked through storms that no one saw, and every calm face has once cried in silence. Life doesn't give strength as a gift, it builds it through challenges. Sometimes we look at the lives of successful, peaceful, or spiritually strong people and assume they were born that way. But behind every composed smile is a story of endurance, a silent battle, and 1,000 moments when they could have given up but chose not to. The truth is, pain doesn't break strong people, it builds them. It teaches them to bend without breaking, to keep walking when the path disappears, and to trust when nothing makes sense. Imagine the seed buried deep in the soil. To the world above, it looks like it has disappeared, but underground it is breaking open, shedding its shell, and pushing against the heavy layers of dirt to reach sunlight. That pressure, that darkness, that struggle, it's all necessary for growth. The same happens to us. When life buries us under responsibilities, failures, or heartbreaks, it's easy to believe we're finished. But in truth,